Welcome to the Lake Show, where you can find out what's going on in and around Lake Loudoun. This show is brought to you by the Fort Loudoun Lake Association, a nonprofit environmental conservation organization that keeps Fort Loudoun Lake safe, clean, and fun. I'm Angela Howard, the Executive Director of Fort Loudoun Lake Association, and I work with zone managers and an in-house scientist who remove trash and debris daily, educate our community on pollution prevention, and monitor stormwater and the health of our streams. Today, I'm very happy to have a fun guest on board with us, Fred Jackson from the Captain's Club at Concord Marina. Welcome, Fred.
Thanks, Angela. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, good to get you off your boat. So you're really a good guest to have on this show, because tell me how much time you spend on your boat.
Well, I spend in the summertime, or I guess what you call the water time, and then somewhere between April and October, I spend 6 days a week on my boat and out on the water, not just in the dock. So I actually spend a lot of time on the river and out away from the marinas. So
were you from someplace else before? Did something bring you to Knoxville?
Yeah, actually, I started my career here. I'm retired with IBM. I started my career here in 1980 and was here for 10 years in Knoxville, and then ended up living in 7 cities in 3 different countries in my 32 years with IBM. And believe it or not, of all the places I've lived in the world, East Tennessee was my most favorite, and when I retired 2 years ago from IBM, it was my first choice.
And so you stayed here in Knoxville, Tennessee. Did the lake draw you?
Oh, absolutely. I had a boat in I had a small boat, a little ski boat in 1982, and kept it here. I was here from 80 to 90. So for 10 years I was here. I kept the boat here and had the boat all the time, but back in the 80s, if you remember, the water wasn't that great in Loudoun or the river as far as that goes. And I traveled a lot with IBM, so I didn't have the luxury of doing what I do today. And now today, I spend 90% of my time in my boat on the water, and then obviously in the summertime spend it with a lot of the people at Concord and a lot of friends that I've come to know since I moved here 3 years ago. Here 3 years ago.
Right, and so with your love of the water and your vast knowledge, I'm sure, of other water bodies, how do you consider Lake Loudoun in comparison, cleanliness-wise, to say some other lakes and bodies of water you've been around? Well,
I think it is night and day from a positive standpoint, from early 80s to now. Mm-hmm. I think the conversation usually comes up, is the water clean enough to eat the fish out of?
Right.
And the answer to that used to be no here, but that was 30 years ago.
Right.
I think more and more people are saying yes these days, and whether you fish or eat fish or not, you still want to go out and enjoy the water, and you feel a whole lot more comfortable swimming and spending a day on the lake or on the river, knowing that it has been cleaned up as much as it has over 30 years that I've been associated with it.
That's great to hear. We can attribute KUB, TVA, and some of our organization for testing the water, and Tennessee Clean Water Network. There's a lot of people focused on keeping our river clean. Besides that, which can be some of the unseen stuff, the smelly, the bacteria, what are other things that are boating hazards that you see as a boater?
Well, you know, I hate to say this, but it's true. Boaters are boaters' worst nightmares. I mean, there are people, some folks out there that should not be allowed to drive a boat.
Right.
I particularly think that it would be a much better controlled environment if there were better licensing, better qualifications, Coast Guard classes that become mandatory, just things that make people understand. People forget that just because you don't have a boat license, like you have a driver's license, that you have the same responsibility. And I've seen some people who on the water, especially in the last 2 or 3 years out here, that just get to have a little bit too much fun out there and forget that the responsibility that they have, and also forget that boats don't have brakes, that you don't have the confidence in a boat that you might have in a car. So I think people are probably the thing that needs to be, one of the things needs to be cleaned up on the water just as much as the water needs to be cleaned up for a safety standpoint. There are a lot of people I know that have families, young families, who either choose not to come out on the water because it's a holiday on the weekend, and they know just kind of how many I hate to say it, but it's true, how many crazy people are on the water. If I have a family with, small children and I want to go out and tie up on the water or water ski, there are very few places to go on holiday weekends
Right.
that are not just overwhelmed with some folks that you not necessarily maybe want your kids around, and for the safety of your family, you don't go there. So a lot of that could change that. A lot of that education and a lot of the things that most people who have boats are very responsible people. And I've found in my 3 years back here, even being gone for 25 years, being back here just for the 3 years I've been back here, I have made probably more friends in Knoxville and specifically on the water since I moved back here 3 years ago than I did in the 30 years that I worked for IBM. I mean, people on the water are just in generally good people. I've never seen anybody stalled on the water or broken down on the water where they just didn't have people in line to help them get back or help them. It's always seems such to be some kind of unwritten fraternity on the water, and I think 99.9% of the people you see on the water are those kind of people.
So it sounds like there's a real community out there.
Absolutely.
And I bet these people care about their shorelines and the trash and the debris also.
Absolutely.
So how's the debris issue? We were talking about this earlier.
Well, this weekend was this timing of this show is good. I left town to go on a trip down to Florida pretty much the entire month of February. So when I left, the water was way down.
At winter levels.
Yeah, it was at winter level, as low a winter level as I've seen since I've been here in 3 years. And then, of course, I came back, and I guess Friday afternoon I came to Concord Marina, where my boat is, and it was what looked to me be 6 inches from summertime full pool.
Right.
And I thought, well, this is great. And so I decided to go out on the water this weekend, and I have to tell you, it was the worst debris in the water that I have seen, water coming up or going down in the 3 years I've been here. I tried to get to Fort Loudoun from Concord and only made it just barely past Choteau on the Tennessee River, and that was at an idle. It was so dense that you could not snake around it, and for those bass boats that get up at the crack of dawn in the morning and you hear them winding down going 70 miles an hour, those are the folks that will be looking for new props this week, I'm sure.
Well, on that subject of new props and things in the water, one of the things that Fort Loudoun Lake Association does is, as best as we can due to funding, we have one and a part-time guy out on the water, one guy in Concord Marina actually,
Right.
doing the best they can to pick up some of the bigger objects. Big logs, and like what I say, it's not so much what you see because you can snake around those, it's what you don't see, what Tennessee alligators we call them.
Yeah.
And they're about 3 inches or a foot under the water that you could buzz over, not see, and ruin a prop.
Yeah.
So do you see some value, let's say, in an organization that would at least, to the best of their ability, get some of those things out of your way?
Well, I do. I've been associated with you folks now for this is my second year, not only being a member of the Fort Loudoun Lake Association, but also taking a little bit more active view, trying to get you folks. We've had a couple of events at Concord through the Captain's Club at Concord Marina. I see the advantage closely when I'm out by myself a lot during the spring and summer months, because you can really see a difference as opposed to if you'd had 1,000 more employees and a big barge this weekend. It was just like throwing pebbles in the Grand Canyon. You just wouldn't have seen the real advantage. The real advantage to what you and your folks do. I see that because I'm out in the water more than most people are in the spring and summertime, and I see that because they're after big rains in the spring and summertime. On a smaller scale, that happens, and I see your guys coming back with more debris in their boats than they can almost carry. I've seen the top of their boats about an inch or two from the water level being loaded up so much. So
well, and dragging something sometimes.
And I think anybody who's out on the water enough that knows what you do can see the benefit to where you do it and the volume that you really do address. That it's really I think it's been a big advantage. You've always been good around where all the marinas are. But I think as far as support for your group, I think we need more people doing it. you know, we've had a couple of membership drives to get some people, more people in, and not so much people in the marinas. I think people who live on the water could benefit. You know, there's a lot of people, based on them, I looked at your membership, the last meeting we went to, you don't really have as many. You have much more people who are members who own boats in marinas than you do the people who own homes on the river.
So
and I would think, you know, I think we talked about it earlier, you know, how much do you pay to have someone come and do your lawn?
Right.
And you know, I have a home here as well, so and it's important for me to have that service because I am on the boat all the time. So, but I pay around $100 a month to have someone take care of the outside of my home. So the minimal benefit or minimal cost of being a member of the Fort Loudoun Lake Association, and given what I feel I get for it, is a minimal initiation fee or donation, as in your case. But the people who live on the river and the people who use the water, I don't know why I don't know why they wouldn't think about being a part of your association. I see the benefit, and anybody who's been around and seen and been on the water as much as I have would agree that the benefit to having you folks here in Knoxville is probably something that we wouldn't want to see without, because I think the only way that you're really going to get to see what your benefit is, especially given dates like this weekend, is if we didn't have you here.
Well, let me ask you this. We only got a few minutes left, but I want your opinion on this. There's this community, this boating community. There's people that live on the water that see the value of us. And then there's almost just too much to do when it comes to the debris and the trash and all that, because as soon as we clean it up, it comes again, just like a janitor service, which we are. We're a river janitor service. What about, this is just an idea, what about if we did more volunteer events, meaning that we chunk out the river, so to speak, and we have ongoing, so we're getting the community that you talked about that's so close and they care about each other, also out there for a morning or something, cleaning up and then partying later, something like that, but just sweeping, you know, every month, once a month in different sections. What do you think about that? Would it cover more area? Would it work, do you think?
Well, I think the biggest advantage to that would be that if you came to a marina, no matter which marina, and you got that marina to sign up for doing those kind of things, then they would see that in their own backyard.
Right.
So it's easier for me to hold my hand up and say, I'll go volunteer to do that because it's my backyard that's going to get cleaned up. You know, and so I think it's a great idea. And plus, not throwing anybody under the bus at my marina, but I know enough people down there that you'd get a pretty good turnout for a day like that. I mean, anything that you put, based on my friends at Concord Marina, and I apologize for this, but anything it ends with, we're going to do this all day long and then we're going to have a party.
Yeah.
They usually all sign up for that.
That's actually a great way to end. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And in closing, let me thank you all for joining us today. And remember, what we do is REM, our favorite band, remove, educate, and monitor the waterways. 2 ways you can help out is donate at FLLake.org or volunteer and sign up for our newsletter. Join us. Thank you.